All right, today we're talking about bringing the service lane to the driveway. We have three people who are, I would say, the top leading industry experts on this, and I'm not trying to pander, but it's literally Ed Roberts. I'm going to call Ed Roberts up first. Ed Roberts, COO of Bozard Lincoln Ford. I think you have the largest mobile service operation in the country. It's verified. Verified. Yes. Have a seat, please. Let's welcome Ed. Amit Chandarana, CEO at Kirby. Let's go. He can do the most push-ups. I don't know, actually. And last but not least, Troy Blackwell, Senior Executive Leader at Spiffy. Welcome up. I want to remind everybody that if you have the app, I've said it a lot, but still, I think you can get some real practical answers from this panel. So if you are doing or considering mobile service, this is the time to ask the questions. We'll make sure we get as many answered as we can. How many people in here are doing or are in serious consideration of mobile service? Yeah, so a lot of hands and a lot of stores represented based on who raised their hands. We were just talking over, I don't need this anymore. We were just talking there at the side saying next year, Amit said, mobile service will have its own tab on the app because it will be a whole track that we can have. Last year, when we talked about mobile service, we were really in very early adopter mode. I do remember a number of dealers saying like, oh, it doesn't work for us, right? Well, Ed has a special situation. It doesn't work for us. In the last 12 months, though, I think we've seen a real adoption curve velocity starting to pick up as multiple OEMs are leaning in, as more resources are coming online to help dealers solve some of the efficiency or operational problems. And more dealers are realizing like this is an actual revenue stream that should be treated as its own individual revenue stream, not just like my other service department. So this is that middle year, right? This is the inflection point where people are realizing this is going to become a part of their future. So Ed, I want to start with you. Can you just tell us about I don't know the answer to this. When did you decide we're going to do mobile service, and why did you decide that? Because it was very early in the game.
We do mobile service?
Yeah. He just calls it service. Yeah.
No, actually we started doing mobile service in 2015. So 10 years ago now. And it has continued to evolve into, it is consistently now we have more appointments in mobile service than we have in quick lane and service combined.
Well, tell us about 2015. Did you like come up with the idea? Like, I can't remember anyone doing it 10 years ago.
Nobody was doing it in the U.S. 10 years ago. But what allowed us, or why we chased after it then, is and sorry if you guys fit into this category because we all have to do it at some point. There's sales reps everywhere, and the first thing that we try to do as a business owner is run from you first until you build enough value to buy the time that you may need with us. And we did not have a commercial sales department. And our way into commercial sales was to go out and introduce ourselves to fleets and let them know that we can minimize their downtime and convert their non-Ford fleet to Fords over time. And now we have the #1 commercial fleet sales department in the Southeast. But we didn't set out with chasing the sales side of commercial. We set out with removing the obstacles on the commercial side.
When did you make the pivot to retail?
We dabbled in the retail side of it from the onset of that, but more so from a reactionary standpoint. So if we had a re-opportunity, I don't call them rechecks, the re-opportunities, we didn't get it right the first time and we had to go back out and see them or something like that, we'd go out. But we really got serious about it, and this was not because we saw the future. This is because we was planning what's next. In December of 2019, we started really focusing on the retail side of it. And then 4 months later, the world gave us the gateway to really blow that up. I'd rather that gateway not have ever come along, but it did. And you have to capitalize on the obstacles that's thrown in front of you. We all are going to have obstacles. We're all in business and we're going to run into walls, and we got to find ways to turn those obstacles into opportunities.
So now, 2025, can you give us some stats and an overview of your mobile service department and how it is run?
So today we run 41 mobile units. I own 46.
Everybody can picture what 46 vehicles looks like. Think about that. Or so 41, and 41 vehicles going out and dispersing every morning, full of your people, your parts, and touching base with your customers?
So with 41 vehicles, look at that as being a service bay. And how many of us are in service departments that has 41 lifts in it? And so our mobile department is bigger than most dealers. And then to emphasize that, we serviced 132 vehicles out in field on Friday on a day that rained about 60% of the day. So that's our level of business. That's our level of commitment to the game, is going out and overcoming the obstacles, because rain is certainly an obstacle. And there's obstacles up here in the Northeast. We got snow, we got weather days, we got various different things. But you still have to find a way to overcome those obstacles. And when you do, it can become the standard. And that's what our mission is I want to go out and see you rather than you come to me, whether I do a pickup and delivery or I do a remote service visit.
And I'm going to get all the stats and the structure out of the way, so then we can kind of jam on the operations. I'm trying to set the table here. Can you tell us the structure of, there's a director, manager, senior, like how do you have it structured?
Great question.
Especially talk about the parts distribution.
Yeah, parts.
Can you imagine that? Think about it. Your parts department disperses. Where's the inventory? Over there. Is it home? Is it coming back? Do they need something? So go ahead, keep going.
A lot of times we say, well, we can't do that, or that doesn't work for us, or it works for them. Well, it doesn't work for us a lot of times because we don't make it someone's responsibility. Once it becomes your responsibility and that's your sole job, not just a bolt-on job, then it becomes the vision of what you do. So we have people that hire people to work running mobile, and we have people that hire people that work in the dealership, but they're not the same people, because I need them to focus on different things. So we have a fixed ops director that handles everything outside of the roof, remote operations director. So we have a whole set of staff that only run mobile, had separate advisors. It's not, well, you need to do this, or you need to do that, or this time of the day you need to do this, because they're going to do what's most convenient for them and what rewards them the most. But if you make it their job, that's what they have to do. And then it requires us to think outside the box. And our parts managers are control freaks, as they should be maybe, because they're inventory managers. And if you don't control your inventory, you lose your inventory. But we have to convince them to let go of that control and give that to others. So each of our trucks has inventory on it that isn't paid for. And so we have 3 parts warehouses there on property, but ultimately I have 41 that roll up and down the street every day. And we still have to account for those things. And we do through repair orders. Each van has a repair order with the inventory that's on it. And then if we sell the stuff that's on it, it moves over to the customer's repair order. But it's thinking outside the box. It's finding a different way to look at it rather than staying stuck in, well, we can't do that because we've never done that before. Well, you haven't done it yet. And there's always the opportunity to do it differently.
So you have a service director and a mobile service director. You have technicians. Is there anyone in between?
Service advisors.
Service advisors, mobile only.
Mobile only. Have mobile.
Where do they work, the service
have mobile
advisors?
parts runners.
Where do the advisors work?
We have a remote operations center, because if we tie them all together, there's too much. There's a lot of things that I won't go into all the details that comes from that, but we keep them separate because that needs to be their focus. And if it's their focus, that's what they're focused on. That's what they're paying attention to. For those of you guys that have multiple rooftops in an auto mall, you understand the complexity that brings. Well, it would be the same thing on the service side. So we separate them out, have them separate from the dealer. If I fast forward 12 months, they're probably all working from home, but they're not yet. But we have dabbled in some of that because in order for us to get there, we need to try it. We don't just need to flip a switch and say, okay, this is it. We'll work out all the obstacles tomorrow. No, we send this one home and we overcome those obstacles, and we send that one home and overcome those obstacles. So right now I pay rent for a building that is separate from the dealer. It's about 20 miles from the dealer. I don't foresee that being the case 12 months from now. I foresee all of them working from home.
Okay, I think we have enough of the table set. Amit, can you give us just an overview of what Kirby does and how you support mobile service in general? Troy, I'm going to ask you the same question, and then we're going to throw some ideas and concepts around.
Yeah, fair enough. Kirby enables dealerships to enable mobile service. So we do it with software solutions and support. And our background is also a direct-to-consumer company that went out and did, over about 3.5 years, we did over 30,000 mobile service appointments ourselves. And we genesised when essentially a dealer came to us and said, hey, you're eating my lunch. How did you get the van to the right place at the right time, with the right parts and the right revenue, with the right tech on the right truck? We said, with that. And so that's when the company pivoted. And so again, to Ed's point, I think the most important thing is understanding that there's going to be some change management involved. I mean, the softwares are all built for sixth graders. We're not very smart individuals. We had to build it that way. But then the change management comes into play, and that's where everyone's doubling down and providing all the effort.
Same.
Yeah, great. So Spiffy is a full stack solution. Got a pretty fascinating story. Started in mobile wash and detail with a standalone unit, and they recognized 100 cars lined up on a Saturday, and they said, this doesn't make sense. We should probably go to the customer. And started with one van to fast forward 10 years later, 400 vans across the nation and over 3.5 million services. So we've learned a lot. We've built internal softwares to what Amit's talked about to manage this operation. And we also upfit vans, so we get a lot of feedback from our technicians on tools and advice on what the van should look like. And we're kind of pivoting to a degree to take that software and introduce it into the dealership world. And obviously in the Ford world, they have a lot of vans today, but they need some tools to help them be successful. Ed started with one van. It's pretty impressive, but it really comes from the top leadership down. The principals to the GM to Ed, they have to be entirely bought in for this to work.
For years, automotive didn't have to worry about this specific challenge of who are the front-facing people in the dealership on purpose? The smiley receptionist, button-up salespeople. Who are the people that we keep in the back on purpose, right? The technicians, right? Because they mostly really want to be turning wrenches. So now we're not just putting them at the front, but we're sending them to someone's house with their children and their dogs and their lawns and their, all the things that they hold dear. Now, the good thing is it's not something that is new. Everyone have something fixed at your home, right? Air conditioning, construction, right? So this is possible, but it is a little scary, I think, for a lot of people. Ed, how did you get over? Actually, give us some of the standards that you set, because I'm assuming you've taken some technicians, or probably most of your technicians, who working in the back of the house and now are ringing doorbells. What are some of the things you did to transition that? How do you identify who'd be a good fit? And you can tell us a horror story if you have one.
It's just been an evolution over time, and the biggest thing is, and yes, most of our most skilled, think about it at your stores, your most skilled technicians aren't the best communicators. Well, that's no different at your store than it is at our store. So we have to start with someone that's a good communicator and then teach those skills. Well, also our technician, the elements of a technician has evolved over time, and they're no longer that grease monkey. Walk through your shop or spend some time in your shop and look at how many vehicles are being serviced and worked on where they don't even set the lift anymore. And then multiply that times the ones that they bring in the shop and they never even open the hood and they work on it. That number continues to climb. Well, when those things climb, it is a different person working on these vehicles. It's a techie person. And EV brings that to where it's really a gamer working on these things. And so those skills are easier to teach than the highly skilled mechanical elements of it. So it starts with a good communicator. And do we have some horror stories? Yes. He says ringing doorbells. You don't ring doorbells. You wake up kids when you ring doorbells. You text them.
Write that down, everyone, right?
There's all kinds of obstacles that you're going to run into, and you have to look at them as obstacles. How can we prevent that from happening again? Because a lot of times, and sometimes you need a plan B, but I tell my guys all the time, don't have a plan B. Now, sometimes your plan was bad, and you do have to shift. You have to pivot. But if you have a plan B, you're never committed to plan A because you're waiting to run into an obstacle so you can shift and say, well, that didn't work. Let's try it this way. Well, if you have one plan with a mission to overcome whatever obstacle happens, what you do every time you run into an obstacle is overcome the obstacle. And so now fast forward, being in the business for 10 years, we're in that element of the business, in that space. We have a training program where we identify people out of our quick lane or out of various other entry spots, because mostly what we hire at Bozard is entry level only. And we identify them as having the opportunity to be able to travel down that path and expose them to it. And if they want it, great. If they don't, that's okay too. We get other positions as well. But then we have people that's excited about doing it, and they love doing it because it gives them a ton of freedom. And then when you have partners and you can track all those things, you can track how long they're wherever else, if they go to their girlfriend's house or their boyfriend's house or whatever it may be, or they take a 2.5 hour, all those things are trackable, but also those things layer into where you can have the connected vehicle data and know which van to send to the right customer's house because you know what part it has on it and the technician that's capable of doing it.
Talk about Amit and Troy. You kind of have a higher level purview because you get all the resistance, you hear all the reasons why, or you hear all the problems that people face or the roadblocks, mental roadblocks before they even get into it. What are some of the top ones? I'll start with Amit. What are some of the top resistance points that you see when dealers want to get into mobile service and they say, yeah, buts?
Yeah. The interesting part is it first usually passes the me test. I mean, most of the dealers we talk to all the time say they don't want to bring their own car into service. And don't get me wrong, everyone's built beautiful mausoleums, wonderful coffee, there's great TV with news channels on there that you don't want people watching. But they don't...
To be clear, not just MSNBC, Fox News included. Anything that gives you all the bad news all the time.
Whatever
right?
gives you bad news.
Yeah.
The problem is if you go talk to a dealer principal, a service manager, a fixed ops, he or she is basically saying their partner or their husband or wife are not bringing in their car. So it always passes the me test, and then the yeah buts happen. Look, we know the CSI is unbelievable. We know the operational efficiencies are good. You're loading the shop back up because you're moving these smaller jobs out. It always comes down to, is there an ROI? And we have done more pro formas than I've ever done since grad school, and no dealer's ever believed me. But then we pull out a napkin, and we go on the back of it, and I go, Ed, what's the average RO at your store? $600. Let's do $300 just to cut it in half, because that's what we do at everything automotive. And then we do 5 appointments per day when you're not trying, and you start generating $35,000 to $40,000 with one individual that's going out versus parts runners, greeter, cashier, ASM, porter. So then you start realizing that the margin on this, in addition to the rolling billboard in a neighborhood, allows you to start chipping away at some of those objections that they have to overcome.
Troy, what do you hear the yeah buts?
Yeah, we have about 10 years worth of best practices that we've compiled over those 10 years and we've everything that Ed just mentioned, the good, the bad, the ugly. I will say that when we get in front of the dealer groups, to Amit's point, I think everybody understands why they should do mobile. I think they struggle with how to go do it successfully. And so what we sit down with them quite often is just show the buckets, right? You have the B2C side, you have fleet, you have recall for most of the brands, right? So you can go to those 3 buckets. So it's been amazing just to the customer seems less guarded when you're at home or at their office when the technician is working in their driveways. Yes, the horror stories have happened. You know, dealers sometimes will say, I don't want
Horror stories happen inside the store too,
yeah.
to be fair.
Yeah, you know, sometimes you'll hear, I don't want to have oil on the customer's driveway. That's a common one that we hear every once in a while from the dealer group. But I think to Amit's point, when you're on the back of a napkin, you can sit down and show a performa and be here to consult. And that's really how we look at our company, is to consult, educate, take on a partner, and then we work together to perfect our technology and give them the tools to be successful. And another stat that Ford is probably, we can all agree that they're the furthest along in mobile. 2 years ago, they were doing about 20,000 customer experiences a month. And that's mobile and pickup and delivery. Fast forward to today, they're doing over 350,000 experiences a month. Half of them are mobile.
What was the first year you said?
The
20,000?
20,000 2 years ago.
2 years ago.
2 years ago.
Wow.
And so fast forward to today, this is how it's accelerated.
I think Ed's doing most of those he said.
Yeah,
like he's
Ed
doing
did-
348,000.
Ed does
He's not leaving anybody.
Yeah, I'll touch on that because
Yeah.
the room is thinking that, yes, he's in the South, he can do that. But Nolan is sitting over there. He's awfully quiet, but he's sitting there, and he's up here in the Northeast, and he does 30,000 services a year annually with mobile.
Which market is that?
Pennsylvania, I believe, right?
Pennsylvania,
Yep.
yeah.
Yeah. And my first business was a mobile reconditioning company, and everyone said you can't do that work in those conditions. In that area, in upstate New York, it started Syracuse, Buffalo, Rochester, and you can apparently.
You can't if that's what you believe.
Right.
Your
Will you?
mind believes everything you tell it.
That's I love that one. So I think they're also what partners. What do you look for in partnerships? Because we have these OEMs coming out, they have programs, and they're getting more kind of like dialed in as we go forward. However, you still have flexibility to find solutions that are going to work for you. So how does that actually all come together?
I always look for a partner that's very flexible. If they've already established themselves, and it's like our legacy car companies, we know that they're very tough to move. But when you have someone that's still establishing themselves, are willing to go the journey with you and make those adjustments and make those shifts. Because just looking at it from the surface, it seems easy, or it looks like you can figure it out. But when you dial into it, it can be a lot tougher. And I'll give you an example of that. I may send a van that's 12 miles away from a customer's house when it leaves that customer and go to that house, but I already have another van that's 1.5 miles from it. But it's easier for that one van to travel that 12.5 miles or 12 miles to them than it is for the one to go 1.5 miles. And we do that with software. We do that with partnerships, but where we can tie in those elements to where they can do the route optimization. Looking at it geographically, it looks like a no-brainer. Why would I send somebody 10 more miles when I don't have to? Well, it may take them 35 minutes to get there, whereas it just takes the other one 15 minutes to get there.
And there's 3 jobs on the way back. That's the way the system works, right? We use that route optimization and traffic control, and then the types of jobs you have and the parts you have on the van also.
And that'll change throughout the day because weather changes, various different things changes, additional appointments arrive. Things will change that causes you to re-optimize the route. And to have the software to do that to where I'm not just sending a different van there because of traffic, I'm sending a van there that still has the parts that I need for the service that I'm going there to do.
Yeah, there's some complexities to it. We have about 5 minutes left. I want to get some questions. I think one thing that's not in these questions that I do want to cover is something that Andy Gelcher said, Mohawk Chevrolet. One of the biggest ROIs for him was what he called load leveling, right? Can you explain that principle? Amit, I'll let you do it.
Yeah, I mean,
we were together
Andy's
when we
been
had the
working with
combo.
us for several years, and that's his entire thesis, right? Everyone's going to have a different reason that they want to do it, right? CSI or shop capacity, but that's his. He basically wanted to move out as much business that he believed was under a certain threshold so that he could generate more revenue per bay. And that's what they call load leveling. Their basically entire KPI that they look at is how much more can I generate out of each bay, because it's $250,000 to put a new bay in if I've got the 6 months and the real estate to add more capacity.
Right, so making sure the master techs are doing master tech work.
Right. And then the C&D techs are basically working on these software updates that are 25% of every recall.
Right. So I just wanted to put that in the conversation. Let's get to some questions. Do you find younger techs are more inclined to want to be mobile techs?
You want to take that?
Yeah, I mean, I think Ed has a great story in his market. Obviously, being down in Florida, a hot market where you have swimming pool technicians. They're out cleaning pools. One thing that's great about them is they're highly engaged with the customers. So they've kind of tapped that as a resource, kind of out of the box, and have had great success with that person.
And I'll take that and run a little deeper with it. A lot of times we'll take some of our aging technical staff and make them our shop foreman. Well, the right person can do that, but that's not always the best thing to do because that person's telling that younger staff, you shouldn't do this. Look at what it's done to me. This isn't the business for you. And he's sending the wrong message to someone that has the desire to do it. But taking that person out and having measurables that is still controlled by them and sending them out in the field as a diag technician, now we're maximizing all of the skills that they have gathered over the years they've been doing it. And they enjoy talking about those things. They're not busting their knuckles and doing all those things. They're going out diagnosing vehicles. And so it's across the board. I have younger guys doing it, middle of the road, and some at the tail end of their career doing it.
All right, let's get super practical with this question. I think it's probably the question that any tech has. How do you structure the pay plan to keep it fair for both in-store and mobile techs?
There is 3 different levels of pay plans that we have, and I will tell you, we've been doing them for 10 years, and they have changed about every year.
Are you talking mobily?
Mobile. There's 3 sets of pay plans.
3 sets of mobile pay plans.
And one of them's a diag. If you're a diagnostician, that's a different. It's salary plus. All of them are salary plus, but the levels change based on what you do. And if you're If you're one of our fleet technicians, where most of what you're doing is maintenance, and then that's one thing. That's more of our entry level. And then there's the general service technician, general service mobile technician that's out installing SOP parts and those things, and maybe going out and putting the part on that the Diag Tech was there yesterday on looking at. So there's 3 different levels. Most all of them are 50% salary and then 50% based, or all of them, not most. All of them are 50% salary, 50% based on production.
How far out do you send mobile techs?
You need a service? we have sent our mobile units for multiple. As I said, we have a very large commercial department now, so we have sent them as far as 300 miles south of us to service numerous vehicles. I won't necessarily do that to service one, but the norm is about a 60-mile radius, because remember, I said I have a remote operations center where I house my advisors that's 20 miles away from the store. So I get that circle as well. And for you guys in the room that think, well, are you in somebody else's market? Yes, I'm in somebody else's market, because there's no market on wheels. And if you're not taking care of your customers, I'll be glad to.
Troy, what do you see the average distance from store? Do you have a thought on that?
Yeah, well, I mean, we are pretty flexible. We'll cater the technology to match wherever the customer wants. So like if you're in an environment and you just want to work on fleet, then we'll set the zip codes to find that parameter. But we'll tailor our technology to match whatever the customer needs. In terms of ourselves, when we built our business, yeah, we had, geography restrictions. We didn't want to send a van 2-3 hours away for one job.
Amit, do you have a thought on average?
Yeah, we actually don't drop a pin and do radiuses. We draw maps that look like S's, they look like Z's, they can look like an M, because there's certain places.
Like an election map.
There you go. We gerrymander this thing. It's important because there's certain areas. We have dealers in San Francisco that don't want to go to certain parts of Oakland for various reasons. And then there's other dealers who are like, hey, I don't want to go through that military base because, that doesn't sound fun. But we do tend to tell them to sort of crawl, walk, run. Stay close, get your training wheels off in the first 45 days. And then to your point, be flexible about fleet appointments and areas where you can do municipalities and school districts and things of that nature.
Well, that is our time. Thank you for being here. Can you thank our guests today? And all these gentlemen are very open-handed, so they will be around. Please ask more questions. They're here to serve, and I'm looking forward to more mobile service when we get together next year.
Yeah.
Thanks, Paul.
Great.
Thank you,
Thanks,
everyone.
guys.
Thanks for having us.